Good morning, welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty 10 Twitter handle, you know the drill by now. And I'm joined again today by Alison McConnell. Good morning, Alison, how are you doing?
Good morning, Tony, how are you?
I'm very well. A few things happening in the world of Celtic, excuse me, overnight, Alison. First and foremost, Dundee United quarter-final of the Scottish Cup, always a tricky one at Tannadice. When you reach the last 8, you know it's a hard tie, so another difficult one for Celtic to negotiate.
I think when you get into this stage of the tournament, you're always really looking for a home draw. I think it does make it that little bit harder if you have to go on your travels. I think Tannadice can be quite a tough venue for Celtic. I think Tam Courts has got them playing some decent football this season. It's been a bit inconsistent at times, but they seem to be coming out of a slump, and I think you just have to treat every game as it comes and try and negotiate it. And but I think it is a fairly tough tie for Celtic.
Yeah, as you say, when you get to the latter stage of competition, you expect tough ties. But I think if Celtic went to Tannadice recently and won 3-0 and put in one of the best performances of the season, Alison. So if they can replicate that, then I'm sure they'll fancy their chances of going through.
I think some of the best performances this season have actually come away from home. I think they played particularly well at Easter Road. I'm thinking that game back in October, and that game up at Tannadice. So they have put in some decent performances away from home. I'm not sure if it's just a case of sometimes teams at Celtic Park sitting in a bit, and maybe when they go away they're maybe a bit more adventurous, but certainly some of the best performances have come away from home. And as you say, if you want to go deep into the tournament, you want to get into latter stages, into semi-finals and finals, you have to be prepared to basically take whatever comes at you. If you want to be the dominant team in the country and you want to come out of it with a bit of silverware, then you have to just negotiate whatever tie comes.
Excellent. And also this week, Alison, on Thursday, they take on Bodo Glimt in the last 32 of the Europa League, looking to advance in that competition as well. We spoke about it yesterday in terms of prioritising, but I don't think Ange sees it as prioritising one thing over another. He's wanting to win the lot, that he's certainly going to make a fist of the lot. Celtic supporters want to win the league. We know the importance of that. But Bodo Glimt goalkeeper today saying that they're eyeing up Celtic's scalp, so they're coming to Celtic Park for a result.
I think I'm correct in saying that they beat Roma in the Europa League. I think they do, so they already have a scalp to their name. I'm sure they'll be emboldened by that. I think also there's an element like Celtic too that you think, well, why not? You go and you have a go and you see where it takes you. I think Celtic might be encouraged by the fact that the Norwegian season isn't back up and running quite yet. It's maybe the converse of what they're used to in the summer, where traditionally you have Scottish teams sometimes coming up against teams whose season's already started and can be caught that little bit rusty in terms of not having played any competitive games. So I'm sure Celtic will be looking to manipulate any frailties in that sense, but I think if it's a fairly open game, then you would think that Celtic will have goals in them.
Now, Alison, do you think that Ange will play a strong team for this one? Do you think all the big guns will be back? Thinking Juranovic, I'm thinking O'Reilly, possibly Maeda up front. Do you think he'll do that, or do you think he'll go with I wouldn't say a shadow team, but a weakened side, mindful of league games on Sunday?
I would be very surprised if he went with a weakened side. I would expect to see the strongest hand available to him play. I think he's made it quite clear what his thoughts are on the tournament. I think he'll see it as an opportunity to progress, to add something else to the season. I think it's a bit premature to be thinking about winning European trophies. I think when you look at the calibre of teams that are still in it, but at the same time, I think he will want to make a decent impression on it. I'd be surprised if it was a weakened team. I think it will be a fairly strong side that starts the game.
Because despite the fact that people can scoff at the tournament, Alison, it's the inaugural tournament of the Europa Conference League. There is still a lot of prestige attached to possibly winning it or going further in it.
I think the deeper you go, the more credit that you might get for it. I know that certain teams and maybe coming from more illustrious leagues might be quite dismissive of it. I think determine on how other teams approach it and view it might actually enhance how Celtic negotiate the games that they come up against. But I think, like everything, it's European football. It's not the most prestigious European tournament available. I think we all know that. I think it doesn't carry the same weight in any sense as the Champions League and maybe the knockout stages of that, or even the Europa League. But I think it's a European competition. I think you want to give a decent account of yourself and maybe just pick up and expose some players that haven't had any experience of Champions League or Europa League football. And I'm thinking there of the likes of Haggerty and Maeda and Matt O'Reilly, who haven't played games at that level. It might give them an indication of what to expect if Celtic then are successful in winning the title and maybe looking at Champions League football next season.
I think you have to play those guys, Alison, as you say, and give them a taste for it. And once they get a taste for it, they'll clearly want more. And I agree. I think he will play a strong team. I was just asking your thoughts on the whole rotation. I didn't mean to use the word weekend. I was talking about kind of rotation, really, but weekend was the first word that sprung to mind. But I think he's just trying to build momentum now, isn't he? And the teams that will play might not actually differ in the next, and certainly in the league countdown and the run-in. There'll be tweaks here and there, but I think the team more or less kind of picks itself if everybody is fit, doesn't it?
It's a very interesting question, because if you were to say everyone is fit and available and then say, come up and tell me what the strongest 11 is, I'm not sure it's entirely straightforward now. Yeah, I think what you have now is competition for places pretty much in every area of the pitch, especially once Christopher Julian is properly up and running. I think, people might have questioned your sanity if a few months ago you were saying that Kyogo Furuhashi might not walk straight back into the Celtic team when he was fit and available. And I still do think there is an element of that. I think he probably will go straight back in, but all of a sudden, I think there are questions to be asked and there is competition in every area. I think that particularly in the middle of the park, I think Matt O'Reilly has made a fairly stellar contribution since he arrived in January. And I think you would say the same for Rio Hatate. Tom Rogic has had a very impressive campaign today. I don't think you can overlook the influence of Callum McGregor or what he brings. So I think it's about finding the right balance in there and working out what is the strongest team. On a personal level, I don't know if I would be able to say what the strongest one is yet. I think it's a very interesting question. And again, I would go back to David Turnbull too, a very integral part of that midfield trio in the opening half of the season. And all of a sudden now you're looking and saying, does he come straight back in and where does he fit in? And that's a guy who I think, was playing regularly from July until he was injured at the League Cup final at Hampden.
Now, you've spoken about it briefly the other day, and you said that once Kyogo Furuhashi is fit, he automatically comes straight back in. I think a lot of the Celtic supporters will feel that way, and Ange will be hoping for the run-in at some point that he has that luxury of including Kyogo back. Do you see that happening too?
Yeah, I think we've spoken about this before, that Ange Postecoglou is very coy when he's discussing timescales and injury issues, so we don't really have a proper impression of when he may be match fit and available to come back in. I think he very quickly took on talismanic qualities for Celtic. I think he very quickly became the focal point of Postecoglou's team and how he wants to play in that kind of style of football. And I think, his movement and his finishing, his energy, his ability very, very quickly endeared himself to the club and he became a real focal point. I think in some ways, I think there was probably an over-reliance on him in the opening half of the season, maybe best illustrated by the fact he was brought straight back in for the League Cup final, even when he might not have been properly fit, and then, of course, came up trumps in terms of the goals. But I think he probably does come straight back in when he's fit, but what you would see now is that there are options that just weren't there a few months ago. If you to go back to December when that front three were all injured at the same time and there was really a dearth of options, I think you just don't have those same problems now.
Yeah, take some comments here. And Sean Curran comes in. Try and wrap it up in the first leg. Their pitch and possible conditions could be difficult. That is a consideration. Hans touched upon it yesterday, saying we're going to the Arctic Circle. Chilpel says, I want us to do well in the Conference League. I want us to win everything. What's the point? We're not in a competition if you don't want to win it. That's fair enough. And Alex King says we have to play our strongest team and hopefully win to take a lead to the away game. Bodo, obviously a strong team, will have to be at our best to go through after the 2 legs. I totally agree with that. And McCune says, whatever 3 Angie chooses in midfield by unit to run any game. That's highly debatable, but we'll see. And Justin Goodley comes in and says, hi all, can't wait for this game. Another great test in Europe. Jill Pilkin back and say, we'll have a strong bench on Thursday. Their keeper is good, so any win will do us. Frank Benham and Frank, of course, I want us to do well in this little 5th-rate European competition, but the facts are only that winning the SPL this season has complete priority over it, and how else could it be? That's fair enough, Frank. I think a lot of Celtic supporters might share that same view, but a lot of them certainly want to do well. Jill Pilkin back and says, Europe is Europe, Frank. I think any European competition carries prestige, Alison. As you say, it depends how seriously others are taking it. But Andy's made his, and he certainly made his intentions felt that he will take it seriously, and Celtic will field a strong team on Thursday night. I believe that to be the case, and they will go for it, because I think Andy himself touched upon it in that interview with the Australian Sports Channel yesterday. It is a concern going to the Arctic Circle to play the return leg.
I think you could anticipate that, but I think you always hope for a home tie first. Sometimes I think you can just maybe put down a marker there if you're playing at home. If you can maybe take a decent result away with you and know what you've got to do. I think there would be a danger maybe in underestimating them. They're a team that aren't particularly well known. I think when you think of some of the big names in Norwegian football, they maybe don't automatically spring to mind. But I think there would be a danger in underestimating them. And I think you maybe saw an element of that in the performance on Sunday, or maybe in the first half performance on Sunday when Celtic were fairly sloppy and uncharacteristically so. It's not really what you've come to expect from them this season. But I think sometimes psychologically, if you go into a game thinking that it's won before a ball is kicked, I think you can be caught out. So I don't think you'll see that. I think Ange Postecoglou made his feelings pretty clear during and after the game at the weekend in terms of not approaching it properly and not going in with the right kind of attitude and mentality. So I think it probably won't come into play against Bodo, but I think it will be a case of going out and trying to make an impression in this game, seeing where it takes you, and then if you can negotiate this round and go deeper into the tournament, then I think it generates more excitement the longer that you're in it.
Very much so. I'm glad Justin Studley's taking it seriously, Alison. He says Ange might need 2 jumpers. There you go. Big issues spoken about on the Celtic Way morning briefing live. Does Ange need 2 jumpers in the Arctic Circle for the return leg against Bodo Glimt? There you go. Now, Alison, another issue that arisen overnight was that there are going to be away fans for both Glasgow derbies for the rest of this season. I think it's going to revert to the back to the 700, 800 tickets allocation, excuse me, for both sets of supporters, which I think Stuart Robinson said might last for the next couple of seasons before they have a look at it. But at least that's a step in the right direction, isn't it? That away fans are going to now get into enjoy the derby matches, because as much as everything else, I mean, it was a great spectacle for the Celtic fans when they won 3-0 recently. But it's Scottish football's unique selling point, isn't it? The Glasgow derbies, and you do like to see fans of both sides being allowed into the grounds.
I think I've made my feelings quite clear on this matter. I wrote a column which wasn't particularly well received in either quarter, but I think the derby is something to be celebrated. I think I would agree with you. I think it's one of the real draws of Scottish football. It attracts global interest, and I think it's heightened when you have supporters from both clubs in. Now, I think what Stuart Robertson has referenced is maybe a return of 700 or 800 fans going in. It's maybe just enough to create a presence, but it's not taking over a full stand. So I think I would agree with you, it's maybe a step in the right direction, but ultimately I have to say I would hope for a return to how it was of old, when you maybe had 7,000 or 8,000 in the ground. I think it generates a different kind of atmosphere. I think it creates a tension within the ground and within the game, and I think without it, it dilutes the game and it dilutes the occasion. And I say that being mindful too that there are elements of it that can be unsavoury, and elements that I think we could do without. But at the same time, I think when you take the fans out of it, it definitely loses something.
Yep, John Curry comes in and says an 800 allocation is useless, get back to 7,000. He's in total agreement with you, Alison. I tend to agree as well. I think you dilute the occasion and you're missing something, because it is a wonderful spectacle, the Glasgow Derby, with an away allocation getting the full amount of tickets that they deserve, from 7,000, 8,000. But common sense has prevailed temporarily. We hope moving forward that we do get back to the days when Celtic get the Broomloan stand and Rangers get the traditional allocation for Celtic Park. That would make a lot of sense to me. But there are people out there, Alison, who now feel that the derby should just be for home fans only, but I don't concur with that at all.
I think as an observer of the game, I definitely think it misses something. It loses something without having spectators in from both sides. And I think possibly what the barrier is to going back to how it was before is fans on both sides. I think what you have is maybe a majority of fans who are in agreement with their club's decision to close the door on visiting supporters, and I think then it maybe puts pressure on the club not to be seen to give to the the bigger picture is enhanced in the ground.
You still there, Alison? We're getting a bit of Norman Collier as you were speaking there. For those who have certain vintage and can remember Norman Collier, the old comedian. Right, if Alison has computer has gone down or Wi-Fi has gone down, yeah, we can hear you now, Alison. Are you still there? Yeah. Well, I think that'd be a ultimate time to just end the broadcast here and there. We hope you enjoyed the show, apart from the last minute or so there when Alison's Wi-Fi went down. We'll be back tomorrow and hopefully previewing the Bodo Glimt game and give you our starting 11 for it as Celtic attempt to carve out a first leg league in the last 32 of the Europa Conference League. Thanks for all your comments, guys. We always appreciate it, and we'll see you tomorrow.